What I said was it would be a bold move on the part of the Republicans to do that. I'm not sure that'll happen because there are, obviously the Voting Rights Act comes into play, various incumbents and their districts come into play, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. It's a matter of will and desire and then the legalities of the map. I think the Dallas district, which everybody thinks is the #1 deserved district because it should have been drawn last time, but because of politics within the Democratic Party, I might add, prevented it from occurring, that'll probably be a very competitive seat, probably around 50-50. So I think a Republican could win that, depending on the cycle. It's going to be a national cycle. The issues of the national debate will impact on it, but I think it could be won by a Republican. I think the seat going from, which is essentially the Farenthold seat, which goes up, which I expect to go up from Nueces County up towards San Antonio, Victoria, it will be won by a Republican. The question is whether or not it'll be a Hispanic or not. There's an opportunity for a Hispanic Republican to win there. I believe that there are enough Hispanics to create a Hispanic opportunity seat, and so that's the second one. The third one is going from San Antonio to Austin. Now this seat is probably more likely a Democratic seat, but that doesn't prevent it from being drawn. The fourth seat is in Houston, and that can be done, but then the question of is it within the Voting Rights Act or not, and the ratio of Hispanics to Anglos is really at play here. You know, I don't know at this moment I don't know the direct answer, but everybody understands it and understands the deviation that's acceptable, and it's all a matter of mathematics. Like I said, there is some discretion, but the law mandates certain limitations, and then of course incumbents and their desires and the political will of the map drawers will come into play as well. And so I definitely think that, as I said, Dallas is going to get one. I do think Nueces County will get one. I do think San Antonio, Austin will get one. Houston and the Valley compete for the fourth. Probably Houston winning out on that issue. So what I stated in the Tribune was that would be a bold statement. I do think that many of these seats will be Hispanic opportunity. The question is whether or not they'll be Republican or Democrat. The Voting Rights Act has a termination date in the future, and I assume by that date Texas will be majority Hispanic. The Voting Rights Act, as I understand it, is not interpreted to protect Anglo-Americans, and so it protects Hispanic and African Americans definitely, and so that is coming into play all through this redistricting process. The question that's raised all the time is this is the one you raised. Is it necessary in the distant future when we're clearly a Hispanic state? That's a question for the federal government and the congressman. It's an interesting legal debate. But the reality is, it's kind of like the reality that we have now. When the Democratic Party is, for the most part, Democrat and Hispanic, why do you need a Hispanic caucus? You know, those are questions we face as we change, but these are wonderful opportunities for us. They really are. I will say that the members are fully engaged on the question. There are some people who are still frustrated about the undercount in certain border regions, in certain minority areas. I do think that the numbers are going to stand what they are, and the seats will be drawn as I've suggested in those areas because that's where the high growth is. Once this is done, the debate of our time. Oh, there's issues, and they're both connected. One is, how is it that we deal in this time of transition when we have an Anglo-dominated state to a more Hispanic-dominated state, how do we deal with each other? Do we respect each other? Are we harsh to each other? In history, this has reoccurred over and over again, and so we have to learn from history and not make the mistakes of our ancestors and try to live in a civil, respectful way. The other question of our time is, what is the future politically of Texas? And it's one I've been addressing and I think I've made a judgment based on what I've done in my personal life in becoming a Republican, is where do we want to go? Do we want to become California, which is heavily Democratic and has its own problems that, you know, I'm very glad to be a Texan because I don't want to be in California. These are questions. Or do we become like Florida, where Hispanics are essentially conservative and moderate to conservative? These are the questions for Texas. And what I would say to both parties, because I was brought into this life not to be a Republican or a Democrat, but to serve my fellow man, is that whichever party serves the majority of the Texas population best is the party that will succeed in the future. Right now, I've experienced, and they're well documented on your site, frustrations that I saw on the left. There are equal frustrations on the right. And at this moment in time, the question is, which party wakes up first to the reality that's in the future? And that's why it was very fitting at the Texas Tribune that we had 2 Hispanic Republicans to 2 Hispanic Democrats, because the question is before us. And each person has to make up their individual decision. I made my decision, but I leave it to everybody else based on their background and experiences.